for a moment, because we have a big story to focus on: load shedding gripping South Africa, and in fact it's the unprecedented stage 4 of load shedding. So it's darkness all round. It seems as if it's a black Monday for South Africans. Eskom has implemented stage 4 load shedding from 1 p.m. That will last until 10 o'clock this evening. That's bad news for the economy. ENCA's Aviwe Mtila joins us now live from Megawatt Park for the very latest. And so, Aviwe, we've never been here. We've been at stage 3 load shedding. This was before stage 3 was sort of unpacked and unbundled, as it were, to then have a stage 4 of load shedding. What are the implications?
Yes, that's correct. To last 4,000 megawatts of electricity will be rotationally load shedded over the course of today from 1 p.m. till 10 o'clock. Of course, that is the word that we got from Eskom in a press release, saying that 6 of their additional generating units have since disappointed them, which has led to this drastic action. We understand that at this very moment, the CEO, Phakamani Hadebe, is in a meeting with Minister Pravin Gordhan just to delve on this very issue of load shedding. But the man who has to field the question for Eskom is right with me here at Megawatt Park at their headquarters to just field those very questions. Putkulu, it's stage 4. Many are saying it's unprecedented. You say we had it back in 2014. It seems like the issue is getting worse.
Well, the power system is severely constrained, which is why after a long time we have had to implement stage 4 of load shedding. And as you correctly mentioned, we did implement stage 4 of load shedding. I think it was on the 6th of March in 2014. But then it was under the broader definition of stage 3. At the time, stage 3 was a shortage of between 3,000 and 4,000 megawatts. So it was only after 2010 that we had redefined this kind of shortages to be for stage 1 to be 1,000 megawatts and stage 4 to be 4,000 megawatts. But yes, generally the power system is not where it should be, which is why we have had to implement stage 4 of load shedding.
Now, I understand in the morning, as I mentioned earlier, you had the management together with the system operators had a meeting at 8 o'clock. Thereafter, the CEO had to rush to an urgent meeting with Minister Pravin Gordhan, in a secluded, undisclosed location. Maybe first give us background on what that initial meeting was about and what outcomes came out of there.
Well, the power station managers were informing us about the performance of their power stations and which units were offline, and the attempts for them to bring them back on stream so that we can stabilize the power system. So generally their attempts to restore supply have been, I would say, almost thwarted by some of the new breakdowns that we have seen now, which is why we had to issue another statement indicating that we're going to move a step further to implement stage 4 of load shedding. But generally, we as a company should not be where we are now with load shedding, and as a result, we shouldn't be making the country to go through these difficulties. You'll remember that as a nation, we have been going to many countries abroad in terms of us in trying to bring investments into the country. With load shedding happening as it is now, clearly all of this are causing a lot of uncertainty, but we are happy, and happiness, it's in inverted commas, because we are having a situation like this. But in a sense that management and the minister are meeting now, and you'll also remember that the president indicated that they are going to intervene in terms of making sure that Eskom becomes profitable or comes back to profitability, and we will have to wait for the deeper details when the Minister of Finance announces the details of the government package of rescuing Eskom. But in the interim, we have to make sure that we do the maintenance, and that work is continuing at the moment.
Any idea what could be spoken about at this very moment at the meeting with the CEO and Minister Pravin Gordhan?
Difficult to say. Suffice to say that clearly the main issue is the performance of our power stations. The minister and the board have been on record previously in Parliament and other platforms saying that they were concerned about the performance of our power system generally, especially the new power stations like Medupi and Kusile. Ideally, we shouldn't be having problems in those those power stations, but the reality is that some of the units in those power stations are having defects, and as a result, all of those defects are resulting in these units being taken offline. And once you do that, especially with a big machine like Kusile or Medupi, if you take any one of those machines offline, which are producing nearly 1,000 megawatts, about 800 megawatts in total that they are producing, if you take it offline for whatever reason, clearly you are taking a big chunk of electricity which should be feeding supply to the nation, and unfortunately that's where we are. So the minister, I'm sure, and the board and management are trying to understand what has led to where we are now and what measures we can put in place to make sure that we stabilize the power grid.
Well, many are saying that Eskom, this current Eskom board, is failing South Africans at this very moment with the unprecedented or alarming stage 4 Eskom load shedding. When can we see the end of it? When are we likely to see the end of load shedding?
Well, the chief executive, the chief operating officer did indicate over the weekend that we are likely to have, I would say, an unstable power system for up to at least, say, April this year. In the run-up to winter. So generally in winter...
Is that still the case with this new load shedding, this stage 4?
Well, that has not been revised. So the most important thing that needs to happen going forward is to make sure that we return back to service the generators which are currently offline. But with this April timeline that we're talking about, it does not necessarily mean that there will be load shedding every day until April. What it means is that there will be days like yesterday and today where the system is constrained and we are forced to implement load shedding, but the grand plan is to make sure that the power system is restored as soon as possible. But as to how long this will take or how quickly this will happen, clearly it's a function of the ability of our technical teams to return these units which are currently offline.
That's the man who has to field questions for Eskom, Kulupasi with Eskom spokesperson, not giving clear direction on when should we see an end to Eskom. It might be April, depending. That still hasn't been revised in itself. So it seems like we're still going to face a dark period and uncertainty as a country when it comes to our electricity stability. We heard there earlier on from energy experts that per day the cost of load shedding is an estimated around 2 billion rands per day. Back to you in studio.
Yeah, Aviwe, I don't know if you still have Kulu around you there, and I'm not sure if you've been able to get any clarity as to what exactly happened with these 6 generating units, and particularly what's the issue with the new power stations, Medupi in particular. Is it still the same issue with the contractors? Are they still holding the contractors responsible for what happened there? And if so, what actions are being taken against them?
Let me get that detail from you. He's actually, luckily, still next to me at this very moment. They want to tackle the issue of these 6 failed generators and Medupi, the issues there. Is it still the issues of contractors when it comes to Medupi?
Yes, Medupi and Kusile, the biggest challenge there is still the contractors. But it has to be understood that, remember, those power stations, the majority of their units are still under construction. The ones that have been handed over to Eskom are still under warranty from the manufacturers or the builders there, and therefore if there are any defects, the suppliers or the contractors will have to, at their own costs, they will have to repair those defects, and that is what is going to happen going forward.
What are the plans in place, though? Because we're seeing, now you're saying 6 generators have failed, generating units have failed. What are the plans in place to turn around Eskom? Because we've had a board now for quite some while, but it seems like Eskom is falling deeper into a debt trap, into more difficulty.
Well, I think perhaps it's maybe unfair to attribute some of these problems to the board. Yes, they have been here for over a year now, but the problems that are bedeviling this company have been here for many years. So this company, for example, in 2010 had decided that some of the maintenance that needed to be done was going to be deferred, and obviously this happened before this management came through. So because of the deferral that happened then, you now have seen a lot of backlog. and which was also exacerbated by the problems that we saw in 2014-15 financial year when we had another episodes of load shedding. So we have had over a period of nearly, say, 6 years or so of backlogs that we needed to have tackled, and this management and the board came when these things were there, but plans are underway to make sure that this the maintenance happens, and as we say, we will be getting some kind of we are expecting at least to hear from the Minister of Finance as to how they're going to assist us with the finances so that we can escalate the maintenance that we need to do.
And when are we expecting this meeting that's ongoing to finalize and come back with feedback?
Well, I can't speak for the minister, to be honest with you. The issues around the minister are above my pay grade, but hopefully very soon, whatever decision they will be making will be implemented very soon, because this is an emergency. We have a situation where we now have 4,000 megawatts off the grid, and we are having to implement load shedding 2 days in a row. So I'm sure management and the board and the minister will come with plans to make sure that we improve the situation as soon as possible.
Well, there you have it, Tulas. You heard it yourself. The current state that we are at this very moment is an emergency. That's from the Eskom spokesperson, Khulu Phasiwe.
All right, thank you so much for that, Haviwa Mtila. There you have it, the message coming from Eskom in as far as how long you will be in the dark for. If you're watching us, of course, it means you perhaps still have electricity, but it's not guaranteed that you will continue to have electricity. And guess what? The power plants that were built at tens of billions of rand, not really performing as best as they should be, and the power utility, they're blaming partly the contractors that have been involved in that work. And so it will be interesting to see what happens in terms of holding them accountable for their part in as far as these outages are concerned. Haviwa Mtila live for us at Megawatt Park. In fact, now let's return back to